Thanks a lot for tuning in for the topic today, which is on self-upscaling. Today, we're going to discuss about what a self-upscaling means, why is it needed, and what are some of the key factors that can affect support your self-upscaling. So, diving straight into it, what does upscaling means? A lot of time we have heard about the term upskilling. That means it's a process wherein you enhance certain existing skill set or add some new skill set to to your current skill. So uh, in a way, it's when you try to upscale in one particular horizon. For example, if it's a technical skill, you are right now an expert in Swift, and you want to upskill. So you might learn Swift UI. So this improves one of your vertical, which is your technical skill. Similarly, it could be communication, but it is one skill at a time. When we talk about upscaling, it's a process of achieving your goal, in which includes upskilling. So in this one, you might have to upskill in multiple domains in order to upscale overall. As we have heard in the keynotes today, Stacy mentioned that in any of the process, in any role expansion you go, there are different responsibilities and different level of skill set required for each responsibility. So that requires you to scale as a person overall, like to brush up skills, not just one of the aspect, but many others, like for example, leadership quality, your communication skill, your technical skill, problem solving skills, and stuff like that. So this is why it is important to upscale. So do we really need to upscale all the time? Um, the answer could be yes or no, depending on what your target is. But what are some of the needs to upscale? Sometimes it could come from your work environment. Maybe you have been working with one company for long. So as the project goes, project after project or quarter after quarter, the expectation from workspace increases. Maybe in the beginning they might want to guide you and train you good enough so that one day you can drive things end to end. Um, you, um, you can create tasks for yourself. You can talk to the product team. You can set up your own targets and upscale in that terms that you are valuable asset to the organization. Or it could be some of your personal goal. Say you want to become a solution architect or a manager of any of the domain. So in that aspect, you might want to have a upscaling plan for yourself. Like you need to know, if I am a developer today and if I want to become a solution architect, what all set do I have to upscale so that you can actually achieve those things. Next, we are going to talk about some of the key factors that can support your upscaling, which would comprise of these six factors, which is defining your baseline, having self-confidence, self-advocating, having effective communication, and not limiting yourself to just tasks, and setting up your 4DX. We'll look into each of these factors one by one. But before that, let's do a case study. For example, we have a developer with us. Her name is Siri. And what she does is deliver all the product on time. She's regular with the updates. And she does exactly what is expected out of an engineer. Maybe she also has good communication skills and everything. But what happens to her is like when she works for an year or so, and there was an evaluation time, and then there was a mismatch, like in the results versus what she was expecting. Um, there must have been a gap here. So she got some feedbacks, and then she decided that she should have a upscaling plan for herself. So at the end of the after covering all the key factors, we are going to discuss what she included and how she got benefit out of it. So keeping this thing in mind, let's dive into our very first factor, which is about defining your baseline and your target. Um, so it is really important to be clear about what you want, like set your target, because if you do not clearly define it, you might get distracted over the time, or you might clearly miss your some of the lines. Maybe you are not you're not sure when you want to plan out things for yourself. So how would you do that? First, if you know that, say you want to become solution architect, you need to ask yourself, do you have the right skill set? If not, it's okay, you can learn. But if you have it, you need to define what your baseline is. You can start from baseline zero, and you can evaluate based on defining path for yourself, how you're going to go to the end result. Once you know what your baseline is, what is your target, the path, you need to have a path with lots of milestone in it. So milestone that should be challenging enough so that it push you out of your comfort zone, but those milestones should be easy enough so that you get a sense of accomplishment when you conquer each of this. So why it's essentially important to understand what your goal is, understanding what your baseline is and when you're going to go and what the path looks like, how much time is it going to take. Next, you need to also understand, are you in the right environment? Does the environment has an opportunity? If you want to become a solution architect, does the company has an opening for it? Or do you have the right set of people around you who can support you or guide you through that thing? um, and it is really important to also have a role model, because until unless you know what you wanna like, if you don't look up to somebody or have a target image how you wanna become, you might get distracted over the time. So you really have to be observant what that person or that roles requires to do on day-to-day basis. How does that person deals with the situation, or how does that person prioritize things and stuff like that. And and being observant is important. A lot of time what we do is rely on resources like reading books or articles, and we watch YouTube tutorials. Those are very different than seeing the person on one-on-one basis, or maybe having that conversation with that person. And during this process, when you are observing things, it's really important to have your personal notes. Once Because again, because you're self-advocating, you're defining your own path, so it's really important to understand that, okay, this is important thing which I should be doing, or the next goal requires me to do, and make it an habit. You don't have to wait for anything. It just starts from the day itself. As soon as you know that, maybe to become from a junior engineer to senior engineer, I need to do more PR reviews. Start it from day zero. Just make it your habit. Next, let's talk about having self confidence. Self confidence is the key. Believe it or not, if you have self confidence, half the battle is already won. So, and I truly believe it is rightly dependent on clarity of your thoughts. Once you know what your baseline is and where you're going, you tend to be more confident about how you're progressing. There are going to be many things coming up in between, but you'll be confident that you have a concrete path of where you're going, and down the lane you can actually measure if you're on the track or not, if you're distracted. We'll also discuss more on how can you have those disciplines in the sixth point that we discuss about setting up your 4DX rule. But yes, the more clarity you have about your path, the more confidence you'll have for yourself. And with confidence, you can also expand your range in terms of maybe picking up new challenges, talking to people and stuff like that. And um, again, there are two key factors that can help you expand your range. One, when you are confident in your own eyes, or second, it could be when you look confident in the eyes of others. So when you are confident in your own eyes, that means you feel more powerful. You have that energy to fight the imposter syndrome that we usually have in tech industry. So the more confident you are within yourself, it's more likely you'll expand your range, give yourself that faith that you can learn new things or achieve certain type of things. At the same time, when you look confident in the eyes of others, they believe you. They give you the space to expand. So this would in a way be a give and take. So it's really important to have that self confidence. Next, self advocacy. So once you know what your baseline is, where you want to go, you're confident about it, you have to speak for yourself, because if you don't speak for yourself, who else would? So and how and when should you speak is also a thing. You have to back up yourself with some data. You need to be your own data analyst. Like, you should exactly know how much time you're spending or something. Maybe as a senior engineer, if somebody asks you that, okay, what is your role and how does your day-to-day life work looks like, so you should be able to say that, okay, I do this many hours of PR review, this much time of innovations and debugging sales or product launching. So you need to have the data for yourself. It's nothing that it's really going to help you in supporting and setting up expectation. Um, um, when you and also it's really important to showcase your work and thoughts to people around you. It could be your colleagues, it could be your team, your manager, or in general the organization you're working with. A lot of time we work in silos. We fear thinking that what the other person is going to think about us if we share our thoughts. But no, it's really important to speak out um, and showcase your talent to everybody else. This would also help in setting expectation. We can also take an instance like if you think that you deserve to get promoted, then how would you support it? You need to showcase it. You need to have a backup data with it, and you need to have that conversation with your manager, open conversation with your manager. um, and next, it's really important to advocate for others in order to learn about self advocacy, because as you also know, a lot of time we hear that the best way to learn is to teach. So this implies here as well. The more you stand for others, or you understand what the other person deserve, is when you also realize what are your needs and how and when you can speak for yourself. Next, having effective communication. As also discussed in other talks during this conference, we know communication is really important, irrespective of the role you are into and where you want to go. Um, I'm going to discuss 4 of the factors that can help you have some effective communication. One is having clarity of thoughts. Whenever you have a thought, you should bring in your data again. You should do your researches, bring in your references, um, and know exactly why you're talking, what could be the pros and cons about whatever conversation you're going to begin with your team members or anybody in general. And you should have clarity of the agenda. If you jump into a meeting without a clear agenda defined, chances are you might start with a topic, but you end up with something else. And it is also important to understand who your target audience is. Like, if you're setting up a meeting with your manager, and maybe it's about your appraisal, so you need to understand if it is the right time to talk about it. Maybe you are working on some tight deadline to finish, and in between you are just going out of the blue and talking about it. Maybe that would not be the best time, or rather you can wait for schedule a one-on-one separately and have conversation during the PDR, the performance review timing, or something like that. So it's really important to understand who your target is and what the time is for this communication. And your meetings or communication should be output driven. And it definitely doesn't come at the end. Before the meeting or before the conversation, you should know these are the key points that I need to get answer, or we need to define an actionable before we drop off. So that when you come next time, you know that in the last meeting this was the outcome, and then you can proceed with those data that was concluded. Next, it's we should not limit ourselves for any of the just to the task that is assigned to us. You need to push your limit, and you need to have your own learning plans. So there are a lot of articles and books about how can you define your own OKRs. It's objectives and key results, and you have some KPIs defined around it, which tells you that maybe you start with X results. I mean, say your performance scale, how well your system is performing. You start with an X value, and you want to take it to uh, say Y value. So how are you gonna learn through it, and how are you gonna proceed to that value. So OKR actually, yeah, I would recommend going through some of the uh, uh, sites which would teach you about writing OKRs. In the next slide, we're also going to see one of the small format, how you can define it. I'm sorry, I just blanked out, but yeah, I'm back. So, for your learning plans, it's really important to that uh, understand your core basics. Um, Basics to the core, so that whenever your task is given to you, maybe at workplace you might just want to get the things done, and you just move ahead without understanding the core of it. But when the times come, maybe you want to switch a company or create your own project from the scratch, you would need to go back to the basic and revisit all the concept. So it's better to always have learning plan along with your work, whatever you're doing, and also bring in innovations. uh, uh, Doing the same type of thing every time in the same manner could be monotonous for yourself as well. So try to bring in innovation and talk to your team that this is how we can go of our out of the way to bring some changes and have that and drive those changes in your team as well. So this is one of the format that we were talking about, OKR templates. So in this, you just define that 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the things, and if you are defining it for yourself, you can just take the ownership. Or if it's along with your team, if you want to learn something, you can define who is the owner and how do you. Uh, you need to have metrics that is data driven, again in terms of percentage and all. So again, having different formats, either it could be quarterly basis or you can also define on monthly basis. Um, Next, another important thing that I personally learned from my experience is to understand what your companies, your managers, your colleagues' goals are. When you try to understand that and align your short-term goals around those, you tend to become more attached to what their mission is, and also you become a valuable asset for the company. So there involves a sense of um, a sense of belonging in terms of company to you and you to company. So that would help you really be involved in all the processes, give more suggestions and stuff like that. So definitely try to understand what the people around you are expecting from you and align your goals around it. Apart from work, it's also recommended to have your own portfolio. Maybe you can start with a simple GitHub repo. You can start pushing some of your side projects, some pet projects, share it to the community, um, take feedbacks, ask for suggestions, do pair programming. So that not only helps you in your learning path, but also for personal development. You build relationships and stuff like that. And in many other sessions that are going to happen today, you're going to learn how community is really important. So building a portfolio can also give you a face to talk to other people and get involved and learn together with the community. uh, and never limit yourself just because you're scared of some challenges or failure that might come ahead of you. You just need to learn that everyone is growing and it's all a process. You might have different phases throughout, so you need to accept that failure and challenge is going to be part of it, and just go out there and be bold to innovate and stand for yourself and set up paths, aspirational goals for yourself. Next, we are going to talk about 4DX. So it's a theory. We are going to learn, like many of us are going to listen to lots of new terms here. I definitely cannot go in depth about each of the discipline that this book talks about, but it would be great to have a brief about it. And then and I would share the book link later for you all to see. It was essentially for like mainly it's designed on execution along with an organization. How can you drive things from your team? But it is also applicable on your personal life. So let's see how we can let's go through each of the disciplines and see how we can help take use of this in defining our self upscaling plan. So the first discipline talks about focusing on widely important goals. Since we talk about having your own OKRs or defining your own path, and we know that if we want to upscale, there are so many factors you might have to look into it. So discipline one says that assume rest of the factor remains the same. What are your widely important goals? Pick one or two of those and say and analyze how change of those can can affect can be more effective than versus working on all of those parallelly. So you pick one or two goals to start with, and really act on the lead measures. So discipline 2 also tells you introduces you to two new terms, which is lead measure and the lag measure. So what does lag measure means is lag is a measure when you do at the end of a process. For example, as a team, your goal was to reduce 15 crashes by end of a quarter. So when you do lag measure is when you measure at the end of the quarter itself that, hey, were we able to solve it or not? So that gives you the conclusion. Versus lead measure, it is done in the very beginning itself. You check, it is something like defining your baseline, where you are today. Okay, we start with 0 crashes, but by end of this month, we have to go down by 5 crashes at least. And you need to have a compelling scorecard for each of it. When you have to a, a scorecard in terms of how we are saying that, okay, 5 crashes down this week, 10 up to 10 by the next month, and um, the 15 crashes by end of this quarter, and then you can say that your widely important goal is reached. And in order to do that, to maintain the scorecard and keep it up to date, you need to create a cadence of accountability. How do we do that? Is you need to set some time aside, maybe on weekly basis, just 15-20 minutes by yourself. It's if it's just your goal or with the team. Um, uh, in every weekly meeting you calculate, okay, if I had to resolve 5 crashes by this month, in this week I should be done with at least one crash. Am I there yet? Or is your team able to catch up there? If not, you write it down, you put the percentage, and you enter in the next week taking care that, okay, maybe we're not able to catch up that week, and if you want to really get your goal, your target reached, you have to cover at least 2 crashes in the next coming week. So these are the factors. From It says pick up your goals. You have to be proactive about where your baseline is. How are you proceeding? You need to know the status at any moment. Um, so yeah, this is a 4 discipline of execution. Now coming back to Siri, after looking at all of those things uh, and doing exactly this thing, what would have helped her to upscale? Like if she had started regular catch-ups with one-on-one with her manager, setting the right expectation, saying that by end of this year, I target to become this. Why? Because she is going to back it up with some data that, okay, because I have started doing these things, and this is what I'm interested in, this is what I'm learning, and do some showcase to your team, drive things end to end, take initiatives, and create work for yourself. These are some of the things that is going to help her to upscale in the terms that everybody is aligned what is expected, and then when the evaluation time comes, nothing comes as a surprise or as a mismatch. So yeah, this just before concluding, let's just uh, it, it's time to reiterate through the basic hiking rule, which says that you should not lift your other feet until unless you're sure the one which is on the ground is firm enough to support you. What does that mean? That you should be confident and comfortable where you are right now. You should have a hold about it. If you are an engineer right now and you're looking forward to going to solution architect, uh, first be assured that you are confident. You can resolve whatever comes to you right now, and then um, take a leap of faith whenever you think you are ready for the next one. Start working on it from day zero. Of course, you need to have your baseline defined. You need to have your target defined, and how are you going to proceed with that? and you need to be obsessed and disciplined in order to do that. A lot of time people complain saying that, oh, maybe the routine becomes too monotonous for me to follow, and or I have the energy in the very beginning but I tend to drop down at the end. So uh, for such scenarios, I would say it's always important to also include breathing space in your routine. It's okay to take some time or some weeks off, but be proactive enough to include that in your part, so that you know that it is a scheduled week off, so you take it off, but when you come down you have that plan still going on because you already gave that breath to yourself to have that bandwidth. And last, remember it's a process. So failure, success, everything, it's a part of it. You always have to be grateful, because remember, you have everything that you need. So that's all from my side. Um, my Twitter and LinkedIn handle is Anu22 Mittal. I'll hand over to Sandy again.
Thank you so much, Anu.